To start with, I had no inkling that what the Indian Air Force was about. I was barely a student in Delhi University in 1950s I'm talking about. And I had gone to my college one day and I found there was a lot of crowd standing outside. When I inquired, I learned that one Air Force delegation was coming to speak to the students and motivate them to join Indian Air Force. I stuck around there. There are 3 officers from the Indian Air Force in uniform, and one of them was wearing the wings on his uniform. Came, they spoke to us, and what I heard and what I saw and what I felt was, it is the Indian Air Force for me. I never heard of the Indian Air Force earlier, nor I knew what Indian Air Force does at that time. I went back home after collecting a performer from these officers on which I could apply to join for the Air Force. I filled up the performer. My father was not in town that time. My mother, who was by and large illiterate, she couldn't sign the performer. So I held her one thumb and slapped it on the performer with the signatures were required. With that application having gone to the Indian Air Force, I forgot about it because nothing happened for a few months. So I thought that was that. It was in 1951, Republic Day parade. I had gone with my friends to see this parade. On return, when we were coming, we stopped at a chai wala dhaba to have a cup of tea, and there I found a newspaper in which the results of the pilot course for the exams, etc., were indicated. One person who was looking at it, my friend, he said, "Bhoop, you have made it." I was surprised. Made what? He said that I have qualified to appear for the Indian Air Force exam. I sat for the exam, and once again there was a lull after the exam. And then one day I got a call from the Indian Air Force saying that I am to appear for the selection board at Dehradun. I went with my father to Dehradun. I was very young then, barely 17 years old. After the Dehradun trip, which took 5 days of testing by the selection board, they declared me fit to join the Air Force, provided I was medically fit. I went for the medical exams, sailed through there also, and finally I was asked to proceed to the Air Force Academy, Flying Academy at Jodhpur for my flying training. And this is how I got initiated into the Indian Air Force and got selected. Now, it was the 61st course. We were 85 flight cadets in that course who passed out finally in 1953 on April 14th. After that, I converted from the training aircraft onto the fighters, which we flew. The first fighter was the piston engine Spitfire of World War II fame. From there, I was posted to number 1 squadron at Palam, which was flying the Vampire aircraft, the first jet aircraft that we had in the Indian Air Force at that time. There was no trainer for that aircraft. You had to get into the cockpit and fly for the first time yourself without having had another instructor in a training aircraft along with you. So what they did, they put me in the cockpit. 3 or 4 people went to the tail of the aircraft. It had two booms behind the wing, and they pressed the booms down. The aircraft, standing on the ground, rose, the nose came up. They say, well, this is the landing attitude. When you touch down on the ground, you must make sure your aircraft is in this attitude compared to the horizon outside. That was the only teaching given to us, or instructions given to us. So I flew solo that aircraft, and thereon with number 1 squadron I stayed for almost a year and a half. After a year and a half, there was a demand for flying instructor school to have some young pilots sent there to be trained as instructors. I was one of the volunteers, so I went to the flying instructor school at Tamram, did an instructor's course there, and got posted back to Jodhpur Flying Academy to train the other young pilots. I was barely myself very young. I was short. Some of the flight cadets who came to learn from me were much taller and heftier. So I used to make them sit down on the floor, and I used to sit on the stairs to remain a wee bit above them. Anyway, so after the, I almost served 3.5 years at the Air Force Academy, and then went to the flying instructor school as an instructor with the A2 flying instructors category. By the end of my tenure in flying instructor school, I appeared with the Aircrew Examining Board and upgraded my category to A1, which is the highest category available for instructor in the Indian Air Force. Soon after that, I was posted to an Hunter squadron. I had not flown the Hunters before that. Once again, I was back to Palam, where 20 Squadron flying the Hunters was positioned. It was in 1962, roughly. I remember that. I flew Hunters for another duration of 4 or 5 years. And Hunter aircraft, beautiful aircraft to fly. It has a lot of firepower and pack to deliver to the enemy. It had 4 20mm guns. It could carry rockets, T-10 rockets, and also could carry bombs. As a flying machine, it was just a dream of for the flyers. I happened to be in Palam with 20 Squadron for some time, and then I got posted to the Aircrew Examining Board, where I was flight commander of sea flight, as they called it, and this flight looked after all the flying instructors at the Air Force Academy, including the flying instructor school, to see that they maintain their standards, and we used to check them out almost every year, each one of them. At the end of flying instructor school, as I said, I came to the Hunters. From Hunters, I went to the Aircrew Examining Board, and I was still in the Aircrew Examining Board in 1965 when the war broke out. When the war broke out, the Aircrew Examining Board had shifted from Palam to the new airbase which we acquired at Hindon. I was the first pilot to land an Air Force aircraft at Hindon when this station was inaugurated. I remember the very interesting part. We had not seen the war before, and it was a news was floating around on that particular day that Pakistan has dropped paratroopers at our forward bases, and maybe Hindon will also be subjected to that. These paratroopers were airdropped, And it did happen at Halwara and some other places. Fortunately for India and unfortunately for our adversary, these paratroopers did not land inside the airfield area, but were dropped well outside, where the civilians had caught hold of them. When this rumor reached Hindon or the paradrops, by then I was shifted from Aircrew Examining Board and attached to number 20 Squadron at Hindon itself, which was flying hunters, as I said earlier. So it was about 5 o'clock in the evening in month of September. We reported to 20 Squadron. With me from the Aircrew Examining Board, who went to 20 Squadron attachment, was Air Chief Marshal Suri, who was then a squadron leader with me in Aircrew Examining Board. We lounged around in 20 Squadron for that late afternoon, and suddenly a message came that all the officers who are married and occupying the accommodation must leave their family, take their families out of the station and leave them in Ghaziabad or in Delhi or anywhere they want, or send them home immediately. This was the fear of those paradrops. Anyway, almost everyone left the station because large number of people were married people there. Some of them left their doors open. There was water still boiling or milk boiling on the stove, and they just ran out. And it was in a hilarious way to mention that this kind of panic does take place. In spite of all the indoctrination and kind of grounding we get to not to be afraid. Anyway, the same night, there was a demand to send detachment of 4 aircraft, 4 hunters, to Halwara. Now, 20 Squadron was not moving to Halwara. They were only to supply these 4 aircraft and the pilots. So the CEO of the 20 Squadron was very disappointed and angry, and he rang up Western Air Command saying that we are there to fight. Why are you making us the storage squadron for the others to take our aircraft and fight with them? We like to move. But Western Air Command was adamant. They said, no, you send these people. So the squadron commander of 20 Squadron decided that they will not go to Halwara unless squadron moves, but they will send the 4 aircraft. So they asked people to volunteer who want to go to Halwara. Myself and Nirmal Suri raised our hand because we were the outsiders now, not really belonging to the squadron, but attached to them. Next morning, I led a 4 aircraft hunter formation from Hindon to reach Halwara. One of the pilots out of the 4 dropped off because he's forgotten his identity card in his room. Anyway, he was replaced by another one, and we were given a code word to authenticate when we contact Halwara that these are friends. Now, I just forgot that. It was mentioned sometime in the evening, and I had noted somewhere, but I didn't have it with me. So when we were approaching and getting closer to Halwara, I contacted Halwara Flying Control, and I said that we'll be reaching you in next 10 minutes, permission to joint circuit and land. He said, who are you? Authenticate. No, I looked for this authentication code. I did not have that. So I said, sorry, I don't have the code with me. I don't know where it is, so I can't give you the code. He was a smart chap, wise chap. He thought. He said, all right, who are your pilots with you? So I gave the name of the whole pilots, and one of them was a Maharashtrian. And this gentleman in the flying control of Halwara was also a Maharashtrian. So he spoke to him straight away in Marathi or something, and he got the reply in Marathi, and he cleared us to land at Halwara. That's how we approached. The moment we landed at Halwara, we were given the first task to mount the CAP. CAP is combat air patrols. That is, in anticipation of enemy aircraft attacking you, we send these aircraft in the sky who orbit around the airfield and prevent these aircraft from, enemy aircraft from attacking us. Anyway, little later in the afternoon, we were given a task. Mind you, we four were flying this together, the same four which came from 20th Squadron to Halwara, and we had joined the 27th Squadron. We were told in the afternoon that you do a broad sweep inside Pakistan between Lahore and Kasur area, and there is likely a train which is bringing in ordnance, petrol, tanks and ammunition for the Pakistani tanks which are fighting in Khem Karan area. Find it and destroy it. Well, this was the first time I had crossed into Pakistan, though my father and myself, I was educated in Lahore in the primary school and all that, but that time feeling was different, but now it looked like the enemy feeling, and as if some bombs and guns and everything is going to fall on you and blow you up. A lot of apprehension was there. We crossed over to Pakistan. We entered from Baba Nanak. From Halwara we took off Baba Nanak, that is north from Halwara, and from there turned left towards Lahore and Kasur area. Soon after crossing, I suddenly found a big huge canal running left to right across our path. I didn't see this canal on the map at all. I wondered whether we are in the right place, because map should have shown this. So I called up my leader, then Flight Lieutenant Menon. I said, Minnie, what is this canal about? It's not on the map. He says, sir, who knows it? I also don't know it's there, but we are heading for Lahore, all right. Fine. So as we reach somewhere close to Lahore and we turned towards Kasur to the left, we saw this train. And this train was entering the Kasur railway station. It had closed wagons and open wagons. Open wagons had the tanks loaded into those, and the closed wagons had probably ammunition, and there were petrol tankers also attached to the train. My leader saw this train and he said, wow, that is the one that we're looking for. Now come on boys, get in line, and we blast it up. So we turned on. Earlier we were flying in this four formation like this, and now we were in line behind each other. I saw the leader's rockets fired. I was the last one, I was number 4 in this squadron, so I could see other 3 in front of me. These rockets hit the train somewhere behind the engine, and suddenly I saw the bogies lifting up in the air, literally lifting up. Then number 2, he hit on those oil tankers. Those just blew up into flames and smoke. So did the number 3 further behind, and I was the last one. And by the time I was reaching the train, the anti-aircraft guns at the Kasur railway station had opened up. I never seen that how the fire looks like to a pilot in the cockpit. But then I found that small white and black balls bursting in front of me to start with, and later on all around me. Anyway, I pressed on with the attack, and the last section, I attacked them. As I went over the Kasur railway station after the strike, pulled up and turned over and looked back, it was this kind of burning inferno at the railway station, because there was fuel, there was ammunition, which was going all around there, and the lines of the railway track were twisted, maybe because of the heat of the blast. There was no need to go for second time, because now they were self-exploding and self-destructing themselves. We still had a lot of ammunition left with us, and we thought that we'd look for other Pakistani targets moving on the ground. We found a row of trucks, covered trucks. We tackled them. Some stray tanks. We knocked off 10 tanks amongst 4 of us on that. At the end of it, we are running short of fuel now, and we headed back and landed at Halwara. As soon as I landed, I saw these technical people running towards the aircraft and looking all over. There were 36 holes in my aircraft of the anti-aircraft fire. Luckily, the aircraft held its integrity, didn't blow up or catch fire, and we made it back. These were hunters. It was only next morning, we did not know what we really done. We thought it was a normal, ordinary thing. Such a big, huge tanks, a train was in front of it, and if we blasted it, there's nothing very big we had done. But next morning, we had the Western Air Command chief landing up at Halwara, called us and congratulated us, say, this train and this damage or blowing it up has caused the Pakistan to withdraw the tanks from Khem Karan area, because they couldn't get the fuel, they couldn't get the ammunition for replenishment. And they were being terribly beaten up by the Indian ground forces, and it has changed the whole complexion of the war in that sector. Later on, we were awarded Vir Chakra for that particular attack. Of course, it was a kind of stalemate at the end of it. Neither they won nor we lost. So, now what had happened towards the end of it? Even the Pakistan had hardly left with any ammunition or any will to fight. As far as the pilot's quality is concerned, it has always been good, as competitive as us in 65 as well as in 1971. So as an individual pilot, on that score, I would grade them as good as any one of us.